Too late is the operative phrase. Not late in the sense of a delay that still permits correction, not the lateness of someone who arrived after the scheduled time but before the door was permanently closed. The specific, irreversible door is closed and the building has moved lateness of someone whose realization arrived in the aftermath of the possibility it addresses. After the chance to act on it has passed. After the person it concerns has, through the ordinary and entirely reasonable process of someone who waited too long and finally, honestly, stopped waiting, moved into a life that no longer has the vacancy the realization is looking for. This lateness is not accidental, it is structural, the predictable consequence of the avoidance interior timeline operating in the specific way that the avoidance interior always operates. The realization requiring the absence to become fully possible. The full weight of what you represented only becoming legible when the weight no longer has the competition of the intimacy pressure that your presence generated. The truth about you arriving with the specific, unhurried, consequence-indifferent quality of all the avoidance most important truths precisely when the arrival can no longer change anything, and the destroying the specific, private, internally devastating quality of what the too late realization produces in the avoidant is real. Not metaphorical, not the casually deployed hyperbole of someone trying to make a point. The actual, structural, something has been permanently altered quality of an interior that has just received information it was not equipped to hold, and that once held cannot be set down. What the avoidant realizes, too late, is not a single thing. It is a compound, several distinct recognitions arriving in close enough succession that their combined weight exceeds what any individual recognition would produce on its own. The compound is what destroys, not any element in isolation, but the specific, simultaneous, mutually reinforcing arrival of all of them together. The first recognition is the one examined in the previous piece, the recognition of your actual value, the specific, irreplaceable, this person and not another quality of what you brought to the connection. The intelligence, the groundedness, the genuine depth of caring, the specific quality of presence that made being with you unlike being with anyone else. This recognition, while significant, is survivable in isolation. The avoidant has resources for processing the recognition of another person's exceptional qualities. The self-sufficiency narrative can accommodate the acknowledgement of someone else's worth without requiring the full accounting of what the insufficiency of the response to that worth means. The second recognition begins the compound's destructive work. It is the recognition of what you were doing the entire time, not what you were doing in the strategic sense, not the realization that you were following a particular approach or deploying particular behaviors in service of a calculated outcome, the recognition of what you were doing in the real sense, of the quality of the effort you were extending, of the specific generosity of someone who saw the avoidant, actually saw them, with the full accuracy of someone whose perception reached beneath the management to the real interior, and chose to stay, who absorbed the withdrawals and the inconsistencies and the moments of insufficient meeting, not because you were unaware of what was happening, but because you were genuinely invested in the person you could see beneath the pattern. The avoidant realizes, too late, that you were trying. Not in the effortful, exhausted way of someone who was performing patience in service of an outcome. In the genuine, freely chosen, this person is worth it way of someone who brought the full quality of their caring to a connection that was not returning it adequately and continued bringing it because the caring was real and the person being cared for was seen as worth it. The seeing of the quality of your trying, landing in the avoidance interior without the real-time distortion of the management that was running while the trying was happening is the second recognition, and the second recognition transforms the first. The intelligence and value of the first recognition, combined with the genuine quality of the effort of the second, produces a specific and devastating sum. You were exceptional and you tried, and it was not enough, not because of your insufficiency, because of theirs. The third recognition completes the compound and is the one most directly responsible for the destroying quality of what the too late realization produces. It is the recognition of what they were doing to you while you were trying, not what they were doing consciously, not the deliberate calculation of someone who was aware of the quality of your effort and was making a considered choice to respond to it inadequately. The avoidant was not doing this deliberately. But the not deliberateness does not change the accounting of what was happening. While you were seeing them and staying, while you were absorbing the withdrawals and continuing to bring the full quality of your caring, while you were making yourself smaller in the incremental way that loving an avoidant produces in the people who love them, while you were calibrating your needs and moderating your expression and doing the continuous, invisible, entirely unrewarded work of maintaining a connection that would have dissolved without your maintenance, the avoidant was managing you. Not cruelly, not with intent, but functionally, operationally, in the specific sense that the management protocol was treating your genuine, freely given, deeply felt caring as intimacy pressure requiring management rather than as the gift it actually was processing your love as a problem to be handled rather than a thing to be received. Was, through the continuous operation of a system that was optimized for the avoidance comfort at the consistent cost of your dignity, taking what you were offering and converting it into something the management could deal with, rather than something the interior could genuinely receive. The realization of this, of the specific quality of what was happening on their side while you were doing what you were doing on yours, arrives with the full, undefended weight of the too late recognition, without the management running, without the narrative frameworks that were available during the connection to make the situation more comfortable than the honest accounting of it warranted, without any protection against the specific, accurate, entirely honest seeing of what the dynamic was and what it was producing in each of them. And the seeing is what destroys, because the seeing is complete. The avoidant can see, in the honest light of the too late realization, what you were and what you did and what they were doing in response to what you were and what you did, the full picture, without the real-time distortion that the management produced when the picture was being created. The full picture is not comfortable to hold. It requires the simultaneous holding of the genuine love and the genuine failure, the real caring and the real cost. The caring was imposing on you, the authentic investment and the authentic inadequacy of the response to that investment. All of these things are true simultaneously. The too late realization holds all of them at once, without the narrative accommodation that would allow any of them to be minimized in service of a more comfortable whole. The destroying is not dramatic. This needs to be said because the word suggests something visible and external, a breakdown, a confrontation, the kind of undone quality that can be observed from the outside. The avoidance destroying is, like all the avoidance most significant interior events, invisible. It happens in the private, unwitnessed, comprehensively contained interior of someone who is working with the full capacity of a lifetime of very effective suppression to prevent the full weight of what they are holding from becoming visible. The destroying is the permanent alteration of something in the interior landscape that cannot be restored to its previous configuration, specifically the narrative. The self-sufficiency story, the positioning as the less invested, more composed, more independent party whose management of the dynamic was the reasonable response of someone who simply needed more space. The too late realization destroys this narrative, not through confrontation, through evidence. The accumulated, complete, finally undistorted evidence of what the dynamic actually was and what each person was actually doing in it. The narrative cannot survive this evidence intact. It requires revision. And the revision, in the honest interior that the too late realization produces, is not a more comfortable version of the original story. It is the accurate version, the version in which the avoidance behavior, however understandably generated by genuine fear, had a real impact on a real person who genuinely deserved better. The accurate version is not comfortable to inhabit. The avoidant who is now inhabiting it, who is carrying the too late realization with the full weight of what it contains, is carrying something that the previous narrative protected them from carrying, something that has no available resolution, something that cannot be repaired because the person it would need to be repaired with has moved, something that sits in the interior with the specific, permanent, entirely self-generated quality of a reckoning that arrived too late to do the thing that reckonings are supposed to do. What the destroying produces is not resolution, is not the clean, cathartic, afterward the slate is cleared quality of an emotional event that completes itself and leaves the person who experienced it in a different but settled place. It produces the carrying, the specific, long-term, quietly devastating carrying examined in previous pieces, the weight in the interior that does not dissolve, that affects the quality of everything above it without being directly addressed by any of it, but it also produces something else, something that does not resolve the situation or restore what was lost or compensate for the cost of the too late realization's timing, but that is, in its own limited and imperfect way, the most the realization can produce. The destroying of the insufficient narrative creates the space for the honest one. The avoidant, whose self-sufficiency story has been destroyed by the full, undefended weight of what the too late realization contains, is an avoidant who no longer has the narrative that was sustaining the pattern. The pattern runs on the narrative. The narrative accommodates the pattern's costs within a framework that makes those costs acceptable, makes the distance reasonable, the management justified, the failure to meet genuinely feel less like a choice and more like an inevitability. Without the narrative, the choice becomes visible. The pattern becomes what it actually is, a choice, however unconsciously made, however fear-driven in its origin, however understandably generated by the specific history of the person making it, a choice with costs, specific, real, person-shaped costs that the narrative was previously absorbing and that are now, without the narrative, landing where they were always supposed to land, on the avoidant, in the destroying of the narrative, in the specific, private, permanent, too late reckoning of someone who finally, completely, without the protection of any remaining self-serving story, understands what they had, what they did with it, and what the doing with it cost the person who was simply trying to love them the best way they knew how.